So today we're going to be reading a letter written by a friend of ours who has asked to remain anonymous. And as we respect this choice and we think it's a good choice, I think that it points to a problem that society is facing. Is that just by reaching out to Muslim communities, it can sound like a radical act, and one that wouldn't be welcomed. And I think that we should question that.
So, I will admit that the act that took place at Fort Hood recently was an act of violence and could be considered an act of patriotism. And I just wanted to add that any act of patriotism that is done violently by any party in this world is an act that segregates members of a particular society.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, and in Arabic this means may peace be with you. We're here today to express our deep sadness about the way that patriotism is being defined in the United States and the way that Islam, which is religious faith, is being separated from a national identity. And we're here today to reach out to all Muslims and all people of the United States and the entire world to come together in community at this time, especially for our Muslim brothers and sisters.
This is a letter that was written by a friend of ours who wishes to remain anonymous. Dear people of America, on November 5th of this year, at approximately 1:35 p.m., a terrible tragedy occurred on the Fort Hood U.S. Army base. Major Nidal Malik Hassan stood up on a desk in a soldier processing center and, shouting, "Allahu Akbar, God is great," he proceeded to fire 100 rounds into the midst of his defenseless colleagues. He killed 13 and wounded 29 at the Texas base before he was shot down by Sergeant Kimberly Munley of the civilian police. Both Munley and Hassan were severely wounded in the exchange, but thankfully, both survived. Military leaders and politicians were quick to attribute this act of violence to a perceived pattern of homegrown terrorism that has emerged over the past several years. Many leaders link this supposed pattern to Islamic extremism, and as Hassan is a devout Muslim, the Fort Hood shooting has been looked on as just another horrible consequence of radical Islam. Retired Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, General John Keane, commented on this tragic event, saying that radical Islam is the most significant threat to the American people that I have faced in my lifetime. When our leaders use strong words to equate violent acts with terrorism with a monstrous threat to all Americans, and terrorism with radical Islam, it becomes hard for us, the American people, to separate Islam from terrorism and violent acts such as the Fort Hood shooting. I know it is hard for many of us Americans, especially when many of us do not know much about Islam or know any of our Muslim brothers and sisters personally, to avoid buying into the stereotype that Islam indoctrinates all Muslim people to hate America, either covertly or openly. The truth, as stated by the American Muslim Armed Forces and Veterans Affairs Council, is that Islam holds the human soul in high esteem and considers the attack against innocent human beings a grave sin. I am concerned at this time, in the aftermath of the Fort Hood shooting, our Muslim brothers and sisters, especially the family of Nidal Malik Hassan and those that live near Fort Hood, are not receiving the community support that we owe them. I beg you, the people of America, with all my heart to realize that this was the act of violence of a single individual who was obviously suffering from serious mental and emotional distress, and it is not a reflection of any group of people as a whole. I implore all Americans to stand in solidarity with our Muslim sisters and brothers and embrace them in community with nonviolence, love, and understanding. I believe that if we Americans could build a beloved community as envisioned by Martin Luther King Jr. throughout our entire country, it would be a better place not only for Muslims, but for all Americans of all faiths. King believed that building community is vital to the health and happiness of humankind as whole, because every person is interconnected. According to King, we are tied together in a single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. King defines community as the mutually cooperative and voluntary venture of a man to assume a semblance of responsibility for his brother. Building community is therefore the path to collective happiness and well-being, because when a person thinks in terms of the needs of their neighbors, our brother, they are actually promoting their own best interest. King's idea of a beloved community was his vision of the way God meant humans to live. Regardless of your spiritual beliefs, however, it is easy to see that King's beloved community would promote the interests of every single person to an extent that is as astonishing as it is beautiful. I invite you, the people of America, to consider King's dream of beloved community. The beloved community is a community where the views and opinions of all genders, races, and ethnic backgrounds are equally considered. It is a community in which differences are affirmed and celebrated. People are free to claim and cherish varying cultural identities without any pressure from dominant culture, and people work to gain the knowledge of how to identify and reject divisive assumptions and values. In the I Have a Dream speech, King describes his vision of beloved community. His dream of beloved community is summed up in the following passage from his speech. The dream is one of equality of opportunity, of privilege and property, widely distributed. A dream of a land where men will not take necessities from the many to give luxuries to the few. A dream of a land where men do not argue that the color of a man's skin determines the content of his character. A dream of a place where all our gifts and resources are held not for ourselves alone, but as instruments of service for the rest of humanity. The dream of a country where every man will respect the dignity and worth of all human personality, and men will dare to live together as brothers. Whenever it is fulfilled, we will emerge from the bleak and desolate midnight of man's inhumanity to man into the bright and glowing daybreak of freedom and justice for all of God's children. King believed strongly that only through nonviolence could beloved community ever be actualized. Because of King's belief in the oneness of every person, he felt that violence against others achieves no net gain in the long run and only serves to divide people. I believe that we are capable of creating beloved communities. We can create beloved community in our country by rejecting stereotypes and other assumptions that serve to separate us. We can create beloved community by thinking about the impacts of our actions and choices on people of other genders, races, and ethnic backgrounds. Most importantly, we can build beloved community by helping, supporting, and being there for one another, especially in our times of need, such as today. I have a wish, my fellow Americans, and I know that together, if we want to, we can make it a reality. My wish is that from now on, all Muslims, and today especially, the family and friends of Nidal Malik Hassan, will be surrounded on every side by all the respect and love that they would experience as members of our beloved community. My wish is that we as the American people will find it in our hearts to rally around our Muslim sisters and brothers and show them that we can transcend stereotypes and hate, to hold them in an embrace of beloved community. That is my wish today.